Hey, I'm Nathan from Runtype. Let me walk you through how most e-commerce storefront AI agents are built, where they tend to fall a little bit short, and how you can use Runtype to build a better one. So what I've got here is a Shopify dev sandbox that I just spun up. And I actually went through Shopify's starter tutorial on how to build a storefront AI agent. So, we're going to use this to kind of set the bar. This by default is going to give me a chat widget on my website that's powered by an Anthropic API key, right? So we're essentially powered by Claude here under the hood. So I can open this guy up and say, what can you help me with? And it's going to start streaming some, useful, helpful assistant content back to me. Now the sample products on this store are all snowboards. We know how Toby loves his snowboards. So I might say, what's your best snowboard? Let's ask a question about the catalog. Now this widget does a nifty thing, right? It's going to call a tool here to search the catalog. It's then going to stream a response back in. And after that's finished streaming in, it's going to render it as a bunch of product cards, which is a nice touch, right? I'd probably clean up this markdown streaming before I put this in production, but this is a nice experience. Now I could say something like, tell me more about the videographer, which is one of the products here. And, once again, it's able to call tools, have a conversation with me back and forth and kind of help me explore this catalog. Let's say, great, add that to cart. And once again, it's going to call a tool and add that to the cart. And, from here, I could proceed to the checkout and so forth. But here's where things get interesting. After it updates the cart, it's telling me, I've got one thing in my cart and I've got a total of about $885. But what's interesting is I actually already had a cart and this agent wasn't aware of it. And what's happening here is I actually have two completely separate sessions and two separate carts. One that I had from when I was navigating the website, and then one from my conversation with the agent. And that's because this agent and this website aren't actually connected to each other in a meaningful way, right? This agent doesn't know what I'm looking at. It doesn't know that I already have things in my cart. So that kind of sets the ceiling for how useful this agent can actually be, right? It can't do clienteling or personalization based on the contents of my cart. And it doesn't know what I'm looking at on the screen. And I see this all the time, right? There's many times I log into one of my services. There's an AI assistant button right there. And even though I'm already logged in, the first thing it says is like, what's your email address? And I'm already logged in, right? How don't you know that? Here's how we can do things a little bit differently with Runtype. So what I've done is I took that same Shopify app and I just replaced that default chat widget with a Runtype chat widget. And this is using a UI library that we've open sourced that we call Persona. It's super fully featured out of the box, right? This is kind of the basic implementation of it, but you could theme this to look exactly like your existing website or product. And it's got some cool features like voice input, built right in. So if you want to allow people to just talk to it, that's the kind of thing you can do. But, we'll start off the same here. I'll say, hey, what can you help me with? And, it responds super quickly. We're actually using a diffusion model called Mercury 2 for this demo, which is great for these customer service tasks. It's not as heavy as Claude. It's not as smart as Claude, but it's way faster, right? So it's great for these sorts of interactions. So let's say, what's your best snowboard? Now we're taking the same general approach here, but you'll notice that came back way faster, right? Now, why is that? Well, we're actually taking a completely different approach here at the architectural level. So instead of the way most agents work, I send that request to a server, that server hits the, LLM, generates a response, maybe calls some tools, and then from the server streams things all the way back to the client. We can do a little bit of a trick with Runtype that we call local tool calling. And this actually allows the AI to just decide to call tools that are already living on the client, right? So in this case, that's in the browser. So I can actually call any JavaScript functions that I've registered here on the page, and I can actually use the APIs that are already registered in the browser. So when I call this Shopify search API, I'm calling it from the browser. And before that data even makes it back to the LLM, I'm formatting and displaying the results, right? So we're actually not waiting for AI here. We're quite confident that in response to searching the catalog, we should be showing a product collection. So we render that immediately, and then we send that same information back to the agent, right? So that's why that's so much faster. It's able to immediately return, interesting, useful information, and then kind of comment on it and make a recommendation. So from here, I can say, let's add the complete snowboard to cart. We're going to take the same approach here, right? We are making a tool call to add things to the cart, but we're doing it from the front end. And as a result, we're actually doing this inside of my existing session, right? So I had some products already in my cart here as well, but the Runtype agent knows that, and it is able to show me my complete cart. And indeed, it just appended to my existing cart. So there's no split brain, there's no split sessions. And the implications of this is that this agent could be a lot more helpful, right? It could answer that question contextually, knowing that I already have things in my cart. And it can also do things like navigate the site, right? So I can say, take me to the complete snowboard. And unlike most agents, like the one we were just looking at, this can actually function as kind of an assistive technology as well. It can navigate the site. It knows what you're looking at. It can read the page. And it can also do things like help you fill out forms, navigate, proceed to the checkout, and so forth. Now, you might be thinking, what's the security story here? And, we've actually thought about that deep in the core of this. Don't worry. So we have a lot of protections where you can make sure that, this agent can only call tools that you've very explicitly allowed it to. It's not able to just run rampant on your website. And when it comes to actually reading the page, once again, those are only particular regions of the page that you've allowed listed for that. But at the end of the day, this is a way more responsive experience, and it's going to feel like a much more intelligent agent. And so when you extend this to build out your e-commerce storefront experience, you can do things like read the page that, the customer is actually looking at, advise them, help them do a comparison, and make a much more intelligent experience. So if you want to get an e-commerce agent like this for your website, or you want to check out a little bit more of the technology around this, we'd encourage you to sign up on runtype.com or check out some of the examples where we've got cool e-commerce agents like this that you can just deploy with one click. And please look forward to some of the other content we'll be putting out later in the week with more cool commerce examples, agentic commerce, and examples from more platforms as well.